You will need all the pieces that came in your kit plus a pair of scissors. Start by planning the design. I like to put one LED inside each of the open stars and then another one at the top of the unicorn's horn. But you can do whatever design you want. If you come up with a different design, watch this whole video first so that you know what to do. Next, pull the pocket out of the bag so that it's facing upwards. Take out the LEDs. Notice that one leg is longer than the other. The long leg is the positive side, and the short leg is the negative side. We're going to be creating a parallel circuit. We'll be connecting all of the positive legs of the LEDs and all of the negative legs of the LEDs. So we want to make sure that they're all facing in the same direction, with all the long legs facing the top of the bag and the short legs facing the bottom of the bag. Start by poking the LEDs through the front of the bag, making sure that the top leg is positive and the bottom leg is negative. If an LED is particularly hard to push through, take the needle out of the sewing kit and make a little hole using the needle, then rotate the needle in a circular motion until the hole gets a little bit bigger. That will help the LED glide through easily. Continue until you have all your LEDs on the bag. Turn the bag inside out. Make sure that all the LEDs remained in place and are pushed all the way through the fabric. If you made your own design, make sure it fits under the pocket. Take out the battery holder. Open it up. Notice that there are two holes on either side of where the batteries go. Those holes are where we're going to sew. Take out the sewing kit. You'll need the needle, the white thread, and the needle threader. Use the needle threader to thread the needle by pushing the needle threader through the eye of the needle first, then pushing the thread through the needle threader, and pulling the needle threader out of the needle. Pull the thread all the way through and tie a knot at the end of both strings. Use the thread to sew the battery pack to the pocket. Sew back and forth, but make sure that you're only sewing to the pocket and not through the entire bag. I also like to use the thread to tack the wire in place so that it doesn't kind of dangle around. Push the thread through the pocket so that it comes to the back side and flip the pocket over. Bend the wire around the edge of the pocket. Now we'll be sewing on the front of the bag, so there's a special technique to do this so that the stitches don't show on the front. What you want to do is pick up only one stitch from the canvas bag. This will pull that one thread to the back, so you won't see this on the front of the bag. Tack the wire in place close to the seam on the front of the bag. Pull off the wire protectors on the end. Cut the two wires apart, making sure not to cut off the wires. And tack the two wires into a Y shape. The positive wire has a dashed white line on it. Make sure that the positive wire is closest to the seam of the bag where the bag meets the pocket. Insert the batteries into the battery holder. Make sure you're putting them in with the positive and negative correct. Use the needle threader to thread about 3 feet of conductive thread onto the needle. Double up the conductive thread and tie a giant knot at the bottom of the two strands. Take out the conductive nylon tape and cut it in half. Remove the paper backing and place it underneath the negative wire, which should be farthest away from the seam. Place the knot from the conductive thread on top. Fold the nylon tape on top of itself, enclosing the wire and the conductive thread inside. Now let's do a test of the circuit to make sure that everything is situated correctly. Attach the other piece of nylon tape to the positive wire. Then temporarily stick the conductive thread that's still on the bobbin to this adhesive tape. You can now use the two strands to check each LED to make sure it still lights up and that everything will be okay before we start to sew. While testing, make sure the threads aren't touching each other before they touch the LED, because that would short the circuit and it would mean that it wouldn't work. There we go. Now that we know everything's working, you can remove the other thread. Now it's time to sew. Here's the map of what we'll be doing. We'll sew a line from the wire to the first LED. Use the same technique as before by only picking up one stitch in the fabric of the bag at a time. You only need one stitch about every inch apart just to guide the thread where it needs to go. Now I'll show you what I call the staple technique for attaching the conductive thread to the LEDs. Fold the negative wire down flat against the bag. Pick up a stitch that's just underneath where the leg hits the bag and pull it through almost all the way. Now what you'll be doing is basically a finishing stitch in sewing, where you're going to go back and loop the needle through right before you tighten the stitch. Make sure that the stitch is going around the LED's leg, then tighten it. Give it a nice pull. Do 2 more of these stitches on each LED leg. Once you have the stitches done, fold the LED's leg over the knot and press it down on top of itself, just like a staple would be in a piece of paper. Continue this process until you've connected all of the negative legs of all the LEDs together. When you're done with the row, cut off the end and start with a new piece of conductive thread for the other row. If you leave the switch on, the LEDs will blink while you're working, so I recommend turning the switch off, just so that it doesn't drive you crazy. When you're done, trim off the remaining thread. Now it's time to test your circuit. Turn the power switch on and watch it glow. Now, everyone's gonna watch you sparkle.